Parliament. That's Boris. You remember the parties during COVID?
Yeah.
And Boris stood up a number of times in Parliament to say there were no parties. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, there were no parties. The House decided to have an investigation into whether or not there were parties. And it referred to a committee known as the Privileges Committee.
Yes.
Now, I was appointed by my party to be on the Privileges Committee and the Standards Committee. The Standards Committee investigated MPs who'd done wrong, like Owen Patterson, Chris, the guy who became a chief whip and indecently assaulted 3 men, and various other people. But the main ones was the Privileges Committee. And I was on the Privileges Committee, which comprised of Harriet Harman, who's a chair,
yeah,
4 Conservatives, and me. And the Privileges Committee investigated Boris Johnson for 14 months, you like on it. And we were obstructed at every step of the way by the government. And we asked for all the correspondence, all the emails that passed between Boris, his advisors, his civil servants, and anything to do with the parties that were held at Downing Street.
Yeah.
And we got a pile of documents this high, and every name was redacted. We got a bundle of photographs that high, with every face pixelated. And that's the length they went to prevent us getting to the truth.
How corrupt.
Very. So we had a confrontation. We got the chief cabinet minister, his name escapes me, and we said to him, look, we've been asked to do this investigation by the House. If you don't give us this by Friday, we're going back to the House and we are going to kick up a stink. And you're going to be left with a red face and you're going to be publicly denounced. So by Friday, we got everything we needed. But that set the investigation back 6 months. So we did the investigation, and I don't know if you remember this, Paul, but we had Boris came in front of the committee and it's televised.
Yes.
It went on for about 4 hours because they had to have a break, at least once, for voting during the interview. And it's televised and shown worldwide. And we'd all agreed questions that we're going to ask Boris. And as it happened, I was the last person to get questions. But I asked him, we'd been to Downing Street and we'd had the tour and we saw where they sat out in the garden, we saw how close it was to people having a party, and we saw the room where the party was held and how Boris had to go past it. He had to walk along a corridor, and this room is in front of him where there's maybe 100 people having a party. The door doesn't shut. There's 100 people having a party 2 meters from where Boris has to turn left to go up to his flat. And Boris said, didn't see it. You know, and it was just
incredible.
Nice. So anyway, it was televised. I got to ask his questions. He answered. He said I didn't see it, and asked a couple of other questions. So at the end of the interview, we went back to the committee room, and Harriet Harman said to us, "Well, what do you all think?" I said, "Well, I think you should go to jail." And there's a kind of nervous laughter around the room. I said, no, I'm serious. I think that man should go to jail. And they said, oh, well, yeah, we can talk about that. And we went all around the houses. Ultimately, we produced a report. And the report was produced by Harriet and the clerk. It's an outstanding report. Before it was finalised, I had a draft. And we were asked to go individually to meet Harriet and the clerk and discuss the report to make sure we're happy with it, and more importantly, the punishment. So the punishment, if you got more than 10 days suspension, you had to go to a recall election. You had to stand for a re-election.
Right.
So the final draft report said 20 days. I said, well, I'm not signing that. I'm not agreeing to that, because the consensus of the committee, everyone had to agree with the final report.
Yeah.
Didn't have any dissenters. Everyone had to agree. So I said, I'm not signing. I'm not agreeing to 20 days, because he will appeal that, and he'll probably go down to less than 10, and he will get off scot-free. And I am not signing anything that says less than 60 days. 60 days. So that was a kind of private discussion we had. And then it went back to the committee, and some said, 20 days is enough, and some said 30 days. I said, 60 days. I'm not signing anything with less than 60 days punishment. So various people said to me, Allan, come on, that's unreasonable. 60 days is excessive. No one's ever had 60 days before. I said, no Prime Minister has ever lied consistently to the House of Commons and to the public. It is one of the most egregious cases I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's horrendous. It's a standard of our democracy. If we go for 20 days and appeals. So eventually, I said, well, I'm putting down an amendment. And my amendment is that he should be expelled immediately from Parliament. And Beth Rigsby, the Sky TV political reporter, texted out saying, Allan Dorans, SNP MP, has tabled an amendment saying Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, should be exploded. And it's predictive text. And it went out, and within about a couple of minutes, it had gone viral. It should be, and I said, sorry, it should have been expelled. Anyway, it went to a vote, and the four Conservatives voted against it. So I said, I'm holding up for 60 days, and during the course of a couple of days, some of the Conservatives came to me and said, Allan, come on, be reasonable. I said, 60 days, not less than 60 days. So Harriet Harman was a very, very scrupulously fair. And she said, well, we need to get consensus on this. And eventually they settled on, grudgingly, I think, 60 days. So we sent the draft report to Boris, and he came back and said, the Kangaroo Court, not taking any notice of this, I don't think they've got jurisdiction over me, and he refused to accept it. So he made a number of personal attacks, and so did Jacob Rees-Mogg and a couple of others on individual members of the committee. So we slapped another 30 days on for that. So he's facing 90 days suspension. Wow. And he resigned. And that was the end of it.